So now I need to lay out the dimensions of the neck on this neck blank. The first thing that I'll do is come back from the headstock a 1/4 of an inch. This is the dimension of my nut, which will set on that flat part of the neck blank between the headstock and the fretboard. And the next thing I do is find the center of the blank. Then I check that measurement, make sure it's equal on both sides. And then I'll come down to the other end of the neck blank and do the same thing. This way I make sure that I take out of the equation the possibility that the neck blank might be narrower on that end than up by the nut. And then I just use a straight edge and mark a center line. And then I'll repeat this process on the headstock portion of the blank. Checking those measurements, come down here and make the center mark there. Measure, check the measurements on both sides and join that up. Join those marks up. And now I have a center line down the center of the blank all the way through the headstock. And now what I want is I want a 1 3/4 width at the nut, and what I'm doing, that's 28/16. So 14/16 either side of that center line will give me 1 3/4 inch. I'll make those marks and again check them. And the next thing I need to do is mark where the 14th fret is, or would be if there was a fretboard on this neck blank. The body joins up at the 14th fret. So I would start my dovetail tenon at that point. This will have a traditional dovetail neck joint. Hand cut dovetail neck joint. So I mark that. With a small mark, and then the distance from the nut to the 14th fret is like 14 and so many portions of a millimeter. So I will mark to like the closest inch and then use the caliper to measure the little bit that's left. Now I could use like a millimeter mark, but actually what I'm using is inch. Sorry, not millimeter. So it's fractions of an inch from 14. It's 14 and so many hundred thousandths of an inch or whatever. So I want to make that mark and mark that line, and then I'll come a ½ inch from that, and that'll be the tenon, the thickness of the tenon, or length of the tenon. And I'll make that mark, or that line. Then what I'll do is I'll come a ½ inch from that line, and that'll be the line that the preliminary line that I cut this neck to. And what that'll do is I'm going to be using a stacked heel, which means that I have to add a heel to the end of this neck blank. And what I want to do is I'll butt that heel up to that ½ inch extra line, and then cut right dead on the line where the tenon ends, and then I'll have a nice square straight end there that I can cut a tenon on. And I'm taking the measurement for the 12th fret now, I think. That's what I'm doing. And then I'll go from the nut to the 12th fret, and actually here I make a small mistake, and instead of going to the 12th fret mark, I went 12 inches. The 12th fret is 12 inches and so many hundred thousandths of an inch, just like with the 14th fret measurement. But I made a mistake and just marked to 12 inches, not to the actual 12th fret. The reason that you want to go to the 12th fret is that whatever the width of the neck is at the 12th fret, that's the width that you want the string spacing to be at the bridge. I marked that 12. I marked that line 12. In this instance, it won't be that much off. It's 0.700 of an inch past 12. And that's really not going to be, it won't even be a 16th. It'll be like a 32nd of an inch difference or something between the taper at this spot and the taper at the width, rather, at this spot, and the width at the actual 12th fret. So when I make my fretboard, I'll just have to make sure not to measure down to the 12th fret, but to measure down 12 inches. And everything will work out just fine. And any kind of extra width that I have at the actual 12th fret, I'll add to my string spacing, and it won't matter at all. So I'm doing 2 3/16 width here, and then what I'll do is I'll join these lines together, and that will be my neck taper. check those measurements at the nut, and that what I thought was a 12th fret, but down there at that mark. And now I need to draw out the headstock shape, and this is a template that I use to make electric guitars. The dimensions of the neck are different than the dimensions of this neck, but the headstock is the same shape. This is my headstock shape, and so I'm going to use this template to mark out the headstock shape on this blank. And then I'll just do some cleanup. I'm looking now to see what the difference is between the dimensions of this template and the actual dimensions of this acoustic neck. And they are small, but it's enough that there's a difference, that I wouldn't use a template like that. I wouldn't use that template and route out this neck. I'll actually cut this neck out and shape it by hand, and actually the taper and all, instead of using a template and a router bit. I'll use a spoke shave, whatever it is that I need. And all of my points, I'm making sure that it's right. Thank you for watching. The next phase will be cutting this out.